Bizarro world. Doesn't that sound just about right for what we're going through right now? This so-called reckoning for racial justice. It's ridiculous. It's so dishonest. We're having a foolish conversation about race to avoid having a serious conversation about race. And what is most absurd in my book is that Joe Biden is leading the conversation, or at least trying to. He went to Tulsa yesterday to talk about race. We'll get to that in a moment. But again, the ridiculousness of this man, this career politician, talking about race as if he knows something about it. He said this during the campaign. Personally, I think it renders him ineligible to ever speak about race again. But no, he's a Democrat, and he just keeps on going. Remember this?
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
I mean, really? This should have rendered him, I don't know. Well, shouldn't have made him president. When you speak and when you think like that, I mean, that's basically racism right there. If you look one way, you're supposed to think one way. Terrible stuff. But then again, Joe Biden somehow is the president of the United States, and he went out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to talk about race and the horrible thing that happened in Tulsa 100 years ago. I actually want to talk first about Joe, because he's distorting our collective history. We know he can distort his own history. He's done it throughout his career. If he'll do it for himself, he'll do it to us. So Joe Biden, he got to the Senate based on privilege. This is a privileged individual. What do I mean by that? He's mediocre, and he chose the least competitive state in the country from which to become a United States senator. If you really want to be a senator, you could probably go to Delaware and pull it off, okay? Delaware is so small, there are something like 10 to 15 counties that are bigger than Delaware. Take a look at this. San Bernardino County is the biggest county in America, and it's 3.5 times the size, I think, of Delaware, all right? This is a very small place. Joe Biden becoming a senator with like 75,000 votes back when he was 29 years old was impressive, but not too impressive, really. And what did he do after that? Well, he got reelected and reelected and reelected, and he stayed there for a long time. What do politicians do? We know this about all politicians, but Joe is really notorious. They distort, they exaggerate, sometimes lie to increase their power, their prestige, their fame, and potentially earning. Take a look at this.
What law school did you attend, and where did you place in that class? And the other question is, could you quickly, I think
I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect. I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. In the first year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom 2/3 of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay, went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I won the International Moot Court competition. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits, and I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
No, all that stuff is not true. Just about everything he just said is not true, but he said it. He distorted and exaggerated to enhance his political power and his prestige and all of that stuff, and he's still doing it. By the way, back then, the media weren't afraid to call this kind of stuff out.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
So that was back in the late 80s, and it was just a pathetic political sideshow. Now it's different. The stakes are much higher. Joe Biden somehow became president of the United States, and he went out to Tulsa to lecture us about race in America. Now, I don't think he's qualified to do that. Do you? And we just showed how he exaggerated his own personal history to enhance his power. I know he's now distorting our history to enhance his power. He did it a lot yesterday.
friend of mine, John Meacham, I'd written when I said I was running to restore the soul of America. He wrote a book called The Soul of America, not because of what I said. And there's a picture about page 160 in the book showing over 30,000 Ku Klux Klan members in full regalia.
The Ku Klux Klan is not a force in America anymore. The way Joe Biden talked about it sounded like that rally happened yesterday. And by the way, he even distorted that little moment. I looked it up. Page 160 in John Meacham's book. Actually, it's page 173, but what does it matter, really? But take a look at the picture. Do you see 30,000 Klansmen? No, you see about a couple of hundred in that picture. Now, it was a big rally, to be sure, but Joe just can't help himself when it comes to exaggerating. And there's more. That ridiculous Klan rally, which is reprehensible, we don't agree with them, it's stupid, but their legacy is America, Joe says.
Millions of white Americans belonged to the Klan, and they weren't even embarrassed by it. They were proud of it. And that hate became embedded systematically and systemically in our laws and our culture.
In our laws and our culture. There was the Civil Rights Act in 1964. He's saying that that hate is still with us today. America has come a very long way, Joe, a very long way. Heck, we elected a black man, your boss, twice. Get to that in a moment. He also said, and I knew he would go there, he tried to liken what happened in Tulsa 100 years ago, where maybe 300 people, as many, died, to January 6th, where only one person died, a Trump supporter.
Mother Fletcher said when she saw the insurrection at the Capitol on January the 9th, it broke her heart. A mob of violent white extremists, thugs, said reminded her of what happened here in Greenwood 100 years ago.
Is that a fair comparison at all, January 6th to Tulsa in 1921? We all know what happened. No, it's absolutely a ridiculous comparison, but it's one that will enhance his political hand. He also had some pretty crazy observations about our culture and things that Joe has been watching on TV.
I challenge you, find today, when you turn on the stations, sit on one station for 2 hours, and I don't know how many commercials you'll see. Lay 8 to 5. 2 to 3 out of 5 have mixed race couples in them. That's not by accident. They're selling soap, man. Not a joke. Remember old Pat Goodell used to say, you want to know what's happening in American culture? Watch advertising. Because they want to sell what they have.
Pat Goodell was right until Black Lives Matter came around. Because this stuff right now, by the commercials or in the commercials that Joe is watching on his stations, did you catch that? This is being forced down our throats. And advertisers, they are being as woke as possible, not because this is necessarily reflective or not reflective of where we are as a country, but they just want to virtue signal. Everybody knows this, okay? Hey, interracial couples are fine. Same-race couples are fine. But why is this now being celebrated? It's making some people feel that if they're white and if they're white and they're not married to a person of color, that somehow that's not cool, that's not hip, that's not in. This kind of messaging is, I don't think it's bringing us together. Do you? Again, the advertising community, this is virtue signaling, and Joe knows it. All right, this is probably the most offensive and most dangerous, but it's here to stay, folks. Joe and the swamp are sticking to this story.
According to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists. That's not me. That's the intelligence community.
We all know that the intelligence community is big time politicized. Did you see those commercials from a couple of weeks ago? How woke they are. Remember weapons of mass destruction? The intelligence community and the swamp, they go together. And everybody with common sense knows that our lives are not threatened by white supremacy. It's a ridiculous notion, and it is a irrelevant notion. But they keep driving it because they think it will enhance their political power. Joe, if you want to commemorate something, how about what happened a year ago in Minneapolis? Was this beautiful? Was this great when they destroyed a police station? Joe, what country are you talking about? Again, you were the running mate of Barack Obama, a black man who was twice elected president of this country, and you're acting like that never happened. And so, by the way, is Barack Obama. It's pretty wild. And everything you did yesterday in Tulsa and since and before, it's going against what you promised us during your campaign and also on Inauguration Day. The very first moment you were president, you promised to bring us together.
My whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation.
His whole soul is in it. You buy that? I don't know what is up with Joe's soul, but he's not living up to that promise.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.